time, but welcome everybody. I want to welcome all of our attendees, including the first timers, returning members. I want to recognize our PBNSG team, Paul Chatlin, founder of PBNSG and the face of an amazing inspirational story of going from nearly dying to strong, vibrant, and healthy through a plant-based lifestyle. Marion Treese, Director of Operations, Brett Nyquist, Director of Technology, and Megan Burt, Director of Support Groups. We also have an amazing team of specialized hosts who each lead their monthly support group meeting through our membership platform. I actually lead the heart disease group. We meet the second Monday of the month. So I'd love for you to join us. And as Paul Chatlin likes to say, we are together as one. And we have the same passion of helping others find success in this plant-based lifestyle. My name is Lauren Bernick. I am the founder of WellElephant.com, and I've been living a plant-based lifestyle for over 8 years. I have reversed my heart disease by following this way of eating, and now I help everybody or help people reverse their disease. And I specialize in the ins and outs of daily life, how to travel, how to go out to eat, how to amend recipes. So that's what I do. And I am a volunteer with PBNSG, and I love to help people follow this way of eating. So for those of you who are new to our events, PBNSG stands for Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to evidence-based education and advocacy of a plant-based lifestyle to help people prevent or reverse chronic disease and achieve optimal health. So we are into our new membership platform. It gives you access to events like this, live virtual events, cooking demos, support group meetings, event recordings, and more. PBNSG recently began a wonderful new service and is now offering perfectly plant-based nutrition coaching for individuals who would like more support in this lifestyle. So go to pbnsg.org to find out more about everything. And now I want to introduce our guest. I'm so excited because she really needs no introduction, but she is a friend of mine. I am happy to say now, I am so thrilled that I know Chef AJ, and let me just tell you a little bit about her. Chef AJ has been devoted to a plant-exclusive diet for over 45 years. She was the host of the television series Healthy Living with Chef AJ, which aired on Foodie TV. A chef, a culinary instructor, and professional speaker, she is the author of 3 best-selling books: The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, A Revolutionary Approach to Conquer Cravings, Overcome Food Addiction, and Lose Weight Without Going Hungry, Own Your Health, and the 10th anniversary edition of Unprocessed, all of which have received glowing endorsements by many luminaries in the plant-based movement. Chef AJ was the executive pastry chef at Santé restaurant in Los Angeles, where she was famous for her vegan, sugar, oil, salt, and gluten-free desserts, which use the fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the fruit. She broadcasts Chef AJ Live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter daily. She is the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, which has helped hundreds of people achieve the health and the body that they deserve, and is proud to say that her IQ is higher than her cholesterol. In 2018, she was inducted into the Vegetarian Hall of Fame. So let's welcome Chef AJ.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. You know, it's funny when you said needs no introduction. It reminded me of a few years ago when I spoke at the Oakland Veg Fest and somebody raised their hand in the middle of the talk and I said, yes. And they go, who are you? So it's always good to do an introduction because you never know. So I'm here to give a talk today that I love giving. I actually have to give it to a bunch of doctors for CEUs in a few weeks. And so this will be good practice for me. If you've heard it, then I'll try to make it as entertaining as possible. There's quite a few slides, so I will have to go quickly in some places. So let me just share my screen.
And we'll take questions at the end. So if you have questions, kind of just make a note and we'll take them at the end.
Okay, there we go. So I can only see the ones that have their camera turned on. I can see about 4 of you. So of the ones I can see, anybody here ever want to lose weight? Just by a show of hands. 1. Okay, good.
In the past.
All right. Well, maybe you, okay. If you do you know some people that maybe want to lose weight? How's that? Then I think probably everybody would raise their hand. Great. Well, even if you don't want to lose weight, even if you don't need to lose weight, I'm going to try to explain to you that the way that I'm going to propose that a person should eat for what I call ultimate weight loss is pretty much to the same way all the wonderful plant-based doctors that I'm sure give you lectures every month that you've heard of will still recommend that you eat for optimal health, disease prevention, and disease reversal. And I call this talk, Eat Up, Slim Down, and Get Healthy. So who am I? Well, my name is Chef AJ, and I'm somebody that struggled with weight and food addiction probably for over 50 years of my life. The only time I think I was at my ideal weight was at birth, and even then I was a pretty big baby. But I first became overweight at the age of 5, and by the age of 11, I was obese. I weighed 160 pounds when I was not yet even 5 feet tall, and I struggled with this until about the age of 52, about 11 years ago. And you can see the difference between the photo in the left and the photo in the right. And same here. This picture on the left, it's a small group. So you can tell me if you think this joke is offensive, because I got an email about this recently. But, a lot of times I got to wake people up. And so I always say, and this is the truth, in the photo before I was 47 years old and I weighed 160 pounds. I'm wearing a brown shirt standing next to a brown cow. I can't even remember the joke now. I'm standing and I say the cow is on the left, and somebody wrote me and thought that was offensive. I don't get it because I'm making fun of myself, but if it is, let me know and I'll take it out. On the right, I was 57 years old and I weighed about 127 pounds. I'm 5'5.5", by the way. And now I weigh probably about 10 pounds less than that. So how did I do it? So what is the secret to weight loss? I can tell you that I can distill it into 2 words, and those words are not eat less. They're not exercise more, and they're certainly not gastric bypass. The secret to weight loss is calorie density. Has anybody ever heard that term before? Great, because calorie density isn't about counting calories. It's not memorizing the amount of calories in a cup of rice or a cup of blueberries. Calorie density simply means the calories per pound of food. And to understand calorie density and implement it, you don't have to memorize the amount of calories in foods. You just have to know what's called the average calorie density of a few major food groups. And it turns out that food averages in calorie density from about 100 calories per pound on the low end to 4,000 calories per pound on the high end. So there is a 40-fold difference in the calorie density of food. And so a lot of people say pound of food. Well, I don't eat a pound of food. Well, actually you do. You eat several pounds of food per day. And I'm going to explain why or how that is the case with the next slide. Calorie density has been around ever since food has been around. And many of the wonderful plant-based doctors have already written best-selling books based on the principles of calorie density. For example, Dr. Dean Ornish, who was one of the first people, maybe the first, to successfully reverse heart disease with the type of diet that PBNSG recommends. He wrote a best-selling book, I believe it was in 1980, called Eat More, Weigh Less. And when you really understand and implement the principles of calorie density, you truly can eat more and weigh less. Dr. McDougall wrote another best-selling book that's still a bestseller today called The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, which again expounds on the principles of calorie density. And my book, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, is also about calorie density. It's also known as energy density, but ED is also abbreviation for something else. So I like to go with calorie density. So calories per pound of food, people go, well, I don't eat a pound of food. Well, the truth is you do, because Dr. Barbara Rolls, who's the author of this book, Volumetrics, that I actually stumbled upon one night after going to a movie in Burbank, California at a dollar bookstore. It really resonated with me because even though I had those other books, I'm a very visual learner. That's why you're going to have a lot of comparison slides at the end of this presentation. And she talked about how you can feel full on fewer calories by simply changing the calorie density of the food on your plate. And you can see on the cover, because she has lots of pictures in her book, she showed how you could have this huge bowl of minestrone soup for the same amount of calories of a very small piece of a cheeseburger. What's going to fill you up more? She had graphics like to show that for the same amount of calories in a quarter cup, a mere quarter cup of raisins, you could have 2 cups of grapes. But what Barbara Rolls really discovered, because she has done more research in the field of calorie density than any other human, she has a laboratory at Penn State University where she studies eating behavior. She discovered that all human beings eat this roughly the same amount of food per day by weight. Now, that doesn't mean that I eat as much as vegan bodybuilder Robert Cheek, but that most human beings, I mean, unless they've maybe had gastric bypass surgery, eat between 3 and 5 pounds of food per day in order to feel full and satisfied. You see, the problem with going on a diet, well, first of all, if you ever notice that the first 3 letters of diet is die, the problem with going on a diet is most of the times you're going to go off a diet. And when you try to eat less, that makes about as much sense as trying to breathe less, because you do need a certain amount, meaning a certain weight and volume of food, in order to feel full and satisfied. You see, most diet programs tell you to eat less, to weigh and measure your food in a plate, count calories, carbs, or points, and they work as long as you're willing to do them forever. But if you understand calorie density, you can actually eat twice as much food by weight and volume and take in half as many calories. And you're going to see a lot of comparison slides to show that. So we're going to create a calorie density chart together. Green means go, like on a stop sign. Red means stop. I should have made the purple yellow. Yellow just means caution, but because purple is my favorite color, I did this in purple. Maybe one day I'll change it. And we're going to create this together. Now, if I could hear you, I would probably ask you to shout out little words here, but you can kind of just silently do it and put them in the chat. But remember, I said foods ranged in calorie density from 100 calories per pound to 4,000. So let's create one right now. If I were to ask you what food had 100 calories per pound, and again, realize I'm asking for groups, so individual foods will be in this group, but usually people shout out things like vegetables. It's basically non-starchy vegetables. They'll shout out lettuce and kale. All those things will be in there, but absolutely non-starchy vegetables. A little bit different than starchy vegetables, which are very healthy, but have a little bit higher caloric density. So what is a non-starchy vegetable? Well, here's a photo with an example of many non-starchy vegetables. But if you look at this photo, there's actually some things in this photo that we classify as vegetables, culinary vegetables, but botanically they're fruits. For example, tomato, eggplant, cucumber, zucchini, bell pepper, okra, which is not in there. These are actually fruits because they have seeds, and they actually are even lower than 100 calories per pound. They have 67 calories per pound. If you were to Google non-starchy vegetables, you'd get a list like this, or maybe even more. So ostensibly, you could eat a different vegetable every single day without repeating for the entire month. Conan O'Brien has said that for the first time since 2007, the FDA has approved a new device to treat obesity. This amazing breakthrough is called a vegetable. And it's true, because the first secret of ultimate weight loss is to just eat more vegetables. And you know, it's also the secret to health, because we don't have to pick certain foods based on their nutrient density, because if we eat a wide variety of healthy whole plant foods, it's interesting how the foods that are lowest in caloric density are also the foods that are highest in nutrient density. The only problem with eating so many vegetables is your doctor will say, you'd better stop because I can't find anything wrong with you. Because as I mentioned, these are the most nutritious foods in the planet. These are also the foods that most people don't eat enough of, or even at all. You know, Americans eat over 97% of their calories from animal products and processed food, and less than 10% from fruits and vegetables. I know that until I was 42 years old, I didn't eat any calories from fruits and vegetables. I started every day with a Coke Slurpee with 8 pumps of vanilla syrup. I had Dr. Pepper Big Gulps for lunch, and I ate candies, cakes, cookies, pies, and ice cream all day long, but they were vegan. But the truth is you can train your body to crave healthy food, because what you eat today, you will crave tomorrow. But we want you to eat your food, not juiced or blended, if your goal is weight loss. It's not to say you can never have a juice or a smoothie. I'm actually having a juice right now, but I'm not trying to lose weight right now. But if your goal is weight loss, we want to eat our whole food whole. And I'll have a few slides to explain that in a moment. The thing about vegetables is, I think the reason so many people don't eat them, and a lot of Americans don't eat any vegetables, and the ones that do eat less than 10% of their calories from vegetable, and then they consider, actually our Congress considers French fries a vegetable. And that's probably because of the minute amount of ketchup it's dipped into. They consider pizza a vegetable because of the tomato sauce, but really most people don't eat vegetables, particularly green vegetables. And I think part of the reason is because maybe they've grown up, eating, overcooked vegetables, or they don't like them. You're a little bit later in the talk, when we get to the brain chemistry component, we're going to find out why most people probably don't eat vegetables. But if your goal is weight loss and health, I really believe that you have to have at least half your plate at every meal vegetables, and that includes breakfast. And that, I think, it can make the biggest difference in the world, because when you take a food of a very low caloric density, even if you're eating maybe foods that are less healthy or higher in caloric density, you dilute the overall caloric density of that meal. And if you could imagine, if you could lower your caloric, the calorie density of the foods you're eating by as little as like 500 calories a day, you'd lose about a pound a week safely, sustainably, deliciously, without going hungry. So the food group that's next highest in calorie density, which we're rounding up, this is you might have guessed it, fruit. Now, we already mentioned 6 fruits that are only 67 calories per pound, but certain fruits that have less water, like bananas, which are 400 calories per pound, are a little bit higher in caloric density, although they're very healthy. But most fruits, especially the lower glycemic ones, they're only about 200 calories per pound, things like berries, apples, citrus fruits, things like that. So we're rounding up, but even at 300 calories per pound, it's still pretty low in caloric density. Now, when I was a sugar addict, which was the first 43 years of my life, I'm going to be celebrating at Rancho La Puerta in Mexico on July 6th, 20 years sugar sober. I never even ate fruit because to me, it wasn't sweet enough. And on the rare occasion that I would have some strawberries, I would have to douse them with sugar. But now when I eat fruit, it's exceedingly sweet. To me, it's like nature's candy. And I'm not even talking about dried fruit. I'm talking about fresh, whole, natural fruit. And most people do like fruit, or at least some fruit, watermelon, things like that, bananas. It's a lot easier to get people to eat fruit probably than vegetables. So what you can do is put fruit in your vegetables, put some fruit in your salad. And that's one way you can learn to enjoy vegetables more. There are many ways you can cook vegetables to make them more palatable if you don't like them. For example, roasting them. You don't need oil, using an air fryer. So there's always ways to make them better. But the truth is the way you learn to like a food is to just keep introducing it. They say it takes a baby or a child about 15 tries of a new food for it to become a preferred food. Well, that's the same thing with vegetables. If you keep eating them, eventually you will learn to like them. And when you see what they do for your brain chemistry to stop the cravings for sugar, especially those greens with the thylakoids, and what they do for your health and your figure, you may learn to love them and find them indispensable like I do. So why do we want to have you eat your food whole rather than juiced and blended? Well, okay, so these are 2 identical vials. Your stomach is about the size of a cantaloupe. It holds about a liter of food, which is 4.22 cups. So on the left, we have 500 calories worth of apples. Apples are 200 calories per pound. I went to the store. I just weighed out 2.5 pounds of apples. In this case, it was 6 apples. Now, most people cannot eat 6 whole apples in one sitting. But if you juice these apples, you get this much apple juice. I believe it was 3 cups. It is much easier to overconsume calories that are juiced or blended. So there's something missing from the apple juice that is in the apples. And if you guessed fiber, you would be right. Fiber is important to every bodily process. It flushes out waste materials and cholesterol. But where weight loss is concerned, it actually makes you feel fuller on fewer calories. The problem, and there's nothing wrong with in a while to have a green juice, but the problem with fruit juice is that with the fiber removed, the glycemic index is much higher. And what happens when you drink fruit juice like this, where the fiber is missing, it raises your blood sugar much more quickly. When your blood sugar is raised quickly, your insulin level is raised quickly. And when that happens, insulin is the hormone that drives fat into the cells. There's really just no satiety in liquids. They pass through the digestive tract too soon. And that's where fiber comes into play, because fiber really keeps you full for hours. It tricks the brain into thinking you're full. And it's really magical where weight loss is concerned, because fiber together with water in the same package creates bulk, just kind of like a dry sponge being immersed in water. Now it expands. Fiber and water creates bulk, and bulk is what creates satiety. Because you have lining your digestive tract these stretched nutrient and calorie receptors. And without the fiber, which is basically what animal products and junk food is, whether it's vegan or not, without the fiber, there's nothing to put the brakes on to get you to stop eating. So what about this? This is applesauce, but this would be the same idea of, say, a green smoothie, because basically what I did is I took these apples and I just blended them in my Vitamix. So I have 500 calories of apples, 6 apples, which I don't know if I could eat more than 2, but it's much easier now that it's a fruit puree, or this would be the same thing, idea of a green smoothie. You see, the water is still, the fiber and water, they're still intact here. We haven't removed anything. But what we've done is we've greatly decreased the volume. And the thing is when you decrease the volume of the food, the idea of calorie density is to increase the volume of the food so you feel full sooner on fewer calories, when you decrease the volume and when you mechanically alter the food with a blender. I love how Dr. Esselstyn says we weren't born clutching the sharp blades of a Vitamix. We already have 32 of the best juicers and blenders right here. You artificially reduce the bulk or the volume, and it is just so much easier to overconsume calories. The way I know this is in 2011, when I became a patient at the True North Health Center, and I was 50 or 60 pounds more than I weigh now. I had a session with the psychologist, the author of The Pleasure Trap, Dr. Doug Lisle. And I said, I don't get why I'm so fat. I have a green smoothie every morning, all this kind of thing. And he said to me, when you get home from the True North Health Center, I want you to make your smoothie. Now, my smoothie was pretty healthy. It was a cup of unsweetened almond milk. It had 2 cups of frozen blueberries, a frozen banana, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed, about a half a pound of spinach or kale. And he said, I want you to put everything in the blender, but before you drink it, don't push blend, put it in a bowl. And guess what happened? When I tried to eat the contents of the blender, I couldn't finish it. I could only do about half. So if you're somebody that's trying to gain weight, if you're trying to get nutrition into an elderly person or a kid, reducing the volume by blending is a great idea, but not if you're trying to lose weight. So what about dried fruit? Well, it's delicious. And when I travel, like in Mexico, I'm going to be bringing a lot of dried fruit with me because I often struggle to get enough calories when I'm not at home because to get the food the way I need it. So these are dried apple rings. I have a dehydrator. So all I had to do was cut the apples on the sharp blade of my mandolin, dehydrate it, and look at the small amount of apple rings I have. Apples are 200 calories per pound, but dried fruit is 1,300 calories per pound. It's more than 6 times as calorically dense. And what's missing now isn't the fiber, but what is missing is the water. And remember, you need to make sure that everything you eat has both the fiber and water intact, that nothing has been removed. So these are the 4 incarnations of the apples. And imagine this was your stomach. What do you think would make you feel more full? Hopefully you said the whole apples. 400 to 600 calories per pound. Now, this isn't an individual food. These are food groups. And this is the unrefined complex carbohydrate, or what Dr. McDougall would call the starch, my favorite category of food, because this is where all the satiety is. Fruits and vegetables are amazing, and I think you should eat as many as you can. But if that's all you eat, and there are people that are 80-10-10ers or raw foodists, and they don't eat any of the starch categories, they have to then get enough calories, so they have to eat a lot of the higher fat foods like nuts, seeds, and avocados. Because if all you eat is fruits and vegetables, it's going to be very, very difficult to get enough calories. I suppose there's some people that could do it, but at 100 to 300 calories per pound, imagine how many pounds of food you're going to have to eat to get, let's say you need 1,500 calories per pound, which that's just, let's say if you're 150 pounds, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate is about 10 calories per pound if you were just resting in bed. Well, are you going to be able to eat 15 pounds of vegetables? Probably not. Are you going to be able to eat 5 pounds of fruit? Well, maybe, or some combination. So really you can eat as many fruits and vegetables as you want. And I really recommend that you also include some of the little bit, not very much, higher caloric density starches. It's interesting because I need to update this slide. And I keep saying that and I don't do it. But there is a starch that's actually only 200 calories per pound, lower in caloric density than fruit. And it's one of my favorite. And these are winter squashes like kabocha squash, acorn, Hubbard, delicata. Okay, I'm going to write this down finally. Update slide. Keep forgetting to do that. But think about it, even potatoes, and I've rounded up, are about 365 calories per pound. Whole grains are only about 500 calories per pound. Beans, peas, lentils, all the legumes are about 600 calories per pound. These are all things that are very low in caloric density. So I used to not have PowerPoint. And when I was coaching people individually for weight loss, clients would come to my home and I had this gigantic whiteboard and I would write this lecture out by hand. And I remember giving the talk to a lady named Margie, and I gave the whole talk pretty much very similar to what you're hearing today. And at the end, she just scratched her head quizzically and said, what am I supposed to eat again? And out of frustration, I took a red Sharpie, drew a vertical line, and I said, just eat to the red line, left of the red line, which is why I used to sell bracelets that said that. Because research shows that if you keep your average calorie density to about 550, 600 calories per pound per day, most people can eat ad libitum, as much as they want, as often as they want, whenever they want, until comfortably full. That's not, I'm so sick, going to throw up Thanksgiving food. And not only maintain your weight, but lose weight till you're close to your ideal weight. Now, that doesn't mean you can never have foods to the right of the red line. We're talking about average calorie density, but if you focus the foods on your plate, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, you really can eat as much as you want, as often as you want, whenever you want. So it's really not about when you eat or why you eat or how much you eat. What's really critical is what you eat, not when, why, or how much. What you eat is going to be the key factor here. I mentioned that Americans eat less than 10% of their calories from fruits and vegetables. So they're eating 90% of their calories from the right of the red line. So what are they eating? But before we do that, I'll just show you a few photos. Ironically, this is Rancho La Puerta. I'm just showing you some of the foods that I eat or make. To the left of the red line, there's actually a pie over in that corner right there. Delicious butterscotch pie, stuffed acorn squash, oven roasted ratatouille, stuffed mushrooms, smoky sweet potato burgers, mango beet salad, millet salad, cauliflower bisque, carrot cake muffins. These are balsamic Dijon glazed Brussels sprouts. And, I never ate Brussels sprouts because to me, they smelled like gym socks. But once I learned how to roast vegetables and air fry them and make a little glaze of an oil-free balsamic vinegar and mustard, Brussels sprouts might be my very favorite food. I'd rather eat these than candy. I love them so much now. Eating in restaurants can be very hard for people that want to lose weight and be healthy, but there are some restaurants that will accommodate you. I'm very lucky in the Northern California area where we have at least 6 restaurants, and 3 of them aren't even vegan, that not only have a vegan menu, but an SOS-free menu. I was able to work with Starches, which is located in Southern California and Washington when I lived in LA, to create a bowl that has no oil and they may use salt. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely no sugar. And they even have an AJ burrito. So, if you ask and people will buy it, you may be able to get a restaurant to accommodate you. Unfortunately, this restaurant closed at the height of the pandemic. It was called Sioux Plantation, or in parts of the world, Sweet Tomatoes. They didn't make any money on us because you basically could just have a left of the red line feast by having unlimited amounts of salad and vegetables with beans and peas. They had balsamic vinegar there, but I often just bring my own dressing. They had both sweet potatoes and potatoes with salsa and fruit for dessert. And boy, you could just really, eat to your heart's content. This was me on the Holistic Holiday Sea Cruise many years ago. And this is just, somebody just snapped my picture. And this is basically what a plate of food looks like in my world. So there's no deprivation here. If you like to eat, this is just a really great way to go. This was me at the McDougall program again. And this is only one plate. The thing is you get to go back. It's like the smaller I get, the bigger my food gets. It's pretty extraordinary. 750 calories per pound. This is in purple or yellow. If you are colorblind, we can pretend it's yellow, caution. And this is a very healthy food. And what this is avocados. If you're going to eat fat, I would say that would probably be the best one to go. It's a monounsaturated fat. There's fiber in it. But here's the problem. So the California Avocado Commission, which are the people that sell the avocados, so ostensibly want you to buy them, they say that a serving of avocado is 1/5 of a medium avocado. I know many people, for them, a serving is a whole avocado or a half of an avocado. I don't know about you, but if you can take a luscious ripe avocado, cut it into 5 slices, or excuse me, 5 equal segments, eat one, put the other 4 back for the rest of the week, you probably don't need this talk. But most of the people that I've worked with really can't moderate high fat pleasure. Not that this is a pleasure trap food in the same way that chocolate is, but these foods that are higher in fat and higher in caloric density, it's very hard for some people to moderate the use of. And if you can, there's nothing unhealthy about it, but it is just a high fat and high calorie food. So 1,200 to 1,800 calories per pound. These are the refined complex carbohydrates. Many people still bash carbohydrates, but they're not all created equal. There's a big difference between potatoes, rice, and beans, and sugar, flour, and alcohol. So 1,200 calories per pound is ice cream, whether it's vegan or not. 1,400 calories per pound is bread and flour. 1,600 calories per pound is cheese, and 1,800 calories per pound is sugar. And it is within this food groups that all food addiction lies. So I'm sure a lot of people say they're sugar addicts. A lot of people have struggled with bread and flour products. Cheese is a big one. There's opiates in cheese because of the casomorphine. So a lot of people, I've heard Howard Lyman, the author of The Mad Cowboy, say it was harder for him to quit cheese than to quit smoking. But you can see that in this category, these are all processed foods. None of these foods exist in nature, and they're all of a very high calorie density. If you've ever heard of a field called evolutionary psychology, this is something that Dr. Doug Lisle is very well versed in. He's the host of the Beat Your Genes podcast, as well as the co-author of The Pleasure Trap. He basically says that we evolved as a species of a caloric density at about 700 calories per pound. So our ancestors did eat some foods to the right of the red line. They got into honey. They got into meat occasionally when they could. But for the most part, we ate foods of a very low caloric density. And we certainly didn't eat any of the foods in this category because they're highly processed. You can't make them at home, not really. And they didn't exist throughout most of human history. So here's just a picture of that. You know, it's interesting because the more you process a food, the more you make it calorically rich and nutrient poor. You know, sugar at 1,800 calories per pound is interesting because beets, you can make sugar from beets, beet sugar. Beets are about 200 calories per pound. So there's like a 9-fold difference. You know, most people know whether they eat sugar in any form or not. They know that it's not a health food. And they've shown in brain scans and MRIs that it can be as addictive as cocaine or heroin. But you tell people like, don't eat bread, and they think you're un-American. After all, bread is the staff of life. We break bread with our loved ones. And it's not that you can never eat bread. There's some fairly healthy breads out there. Pacha, for example, that's made of 2 ingredients, buckwheat and salt. But if you're trying to lose weight, it's very calorically dense. You know, the problem is, excuse me, when you take a whole grain and cut it with a sharp blade to mill it into a flour, you now have a broken grain. And when you have a broken grain and ingest it, because it has an increased surface area, you have increased absorption in your intestines, which, just like with the juice, raises your blood sugar more quickly, which also raises your insulin more quickly. And that's responsible, insulin, for driving fat into the cells. So whole grains are about 500 calories per pound. Bread, flour products, they're 1,400 to 1,500 calories per pound, triple the caloric density. So remember, I told you your stomach was the size of a cantaloupe, about the size, holds about a liter of food. I could easily eat 500 calories of brown rice, which I often do if I'm having dinner. That will fill my stomach. But if I mill that into a flour to make some kind of dessert or bread, I now need 1,500 calories in order to fill the same space in the tank. So these jars are 4 cups. They're about the size of the stomach. And we're going to look at 500 calories of food. Now, I don't even think that's 500 calories of potatoes, because I couldn't even fit 500 calories of potatoes in there. But this is what 500 calories of cheese looks like, 500 calories of maple syrup, 500 calories of flour. I just say don't even eat anything from that group. It's just not healthy. Even if you're not trying to lose weight, you don't need to be eating those foods. This is how I feel about them. Used to sell magnets, but nobody has a refrigerator that sticks, that's magnetic anymore. All right, so the next food group, 2,500 calories per pound. When they've done studies asking what the most craved food in the world is, this always comes in number 1, even before pizza, which is number 2. And ladies, you know that this is chocolate. 2,500 calories per pound. Just looking at it, a lot of people salivate. So a lot of people don't know that chocolate, at least the cacao, is made from the cacao bean, which is technically a seed. It was actually used in currency in the ancient Aztec civilization, and they have some marginal health benefits. Cacao actually has more antioxidants than even red wine or green tea. But the problem is generally the company it keeps. Most people just aren't eating cacao nibs. Some people are, but most people are mixing it with a lot of dairy, usually full fat dairy, a lot of sugar, and it becomes any marginal health benefits are really obliterated by the fact that you're now eating a food that's 2,500 calories per pound. I mean, look at 500 calories of peanut M&Ms. That's just the bag that they sell at the movie, the little tiny bag. You know, they did a study with people that were self-professed chocoholics. This had nothing to do with weight, but they brought them into the research lab. They filled out, you know, I'm sure questionnaires, what their favorite kind of chocolate was. And these were people that said they were chocoholics. They had to have chocolate every day. And they had a buffet of every kind of chocolate, candy cake, cookie pie, ice cream that you can imagine. But before unleashing them on the buffet, they gave them a shot of naloxone. Now, naloxone is a drug that's usually administered in the emergency room. If somebody, for example, were to have a heroin overdose, what could be a heroin overdose, it blocks the blood-brain barrier so that the person will not die. When these people were given an injection of naloxone, they walked over to their favorite treat, of chocolate, and they took it and they had a bite and then they put it back. They had no more interest in eating the chocolate. So what happened? Was the chocolate no longer creamy, delicious, or was there a perception in the brain something has changed? You see, most people don't eat to live anymore. Most people live to eat, and no, people aren't eating any longer for hunger and survival. You know, the only taste preference that's inherent in the human being is breast milk. Everything else is learned. And this was a very interesting experiment because it just shows something that I'm going to tell you now about dopamine. So dopamine is released anytime you have a pleasurable experience. It's a neurotransmitter. So when people have sex, when they have food, dopamine is released. Well, all eating, even lowly kale at 100 calories per pound, stimulates the production of dopamine in the brain. But the more calorically concentrated the calories, the more dopamine is released. That's why people say they like the foods to the right of the red line better, because they're medicating with food. And remember, most of these foods to the right of the red line did not exist throughout most of human history. They're highly processed foods. And the ones that did were pretty much seasonal. So they weren't getting them every day. You know, our ancestors really struggled to get enough calories. So when things like nuts and seeds and avocados occurred, they, of course, would gorge on them. But for the most part, they weren't eating them daily because they weren't there daily. So we do recognize caloric density, and we're always driven to eat the foods that are highest in caloric density, which is why I've always said, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth, because you're always going to go for the most calorically dense food first. That is normal. 2,800 calories per pound. These are nuts, seeds, nut butters, and tahinis. And really, nuts are about 3,200 calories per pound, but because seeds are 2,600 calories per pound, I just averaged them. So I'm sure you know what nuts look like. But look at that, 500 calories of nuts. I mean, it's like nothing. And you can look at, you can have all those potatoes and more. What's going to fill you up more? What's going to be more satiating? You know, potatoes, according to Dr. Susanna Holt, who created the satiety index, is the most satiating food on the planet. And then when you grind the nuts into a nut butter, you further reduce the volume. That's just not very much nut butter. This is an example from my real life. You know, for many years, I worked at the True North Health Center for 5 weeks a year around the holidays, running a program called the Holiday Cooking Extravaganza. And the picture on the right is my pecan pie that's called the world's healthiest pecan pie because it's literally made of 2 ingredients, dates and pecans. That piece of pie, I don't know, for me, I ate it once. It was about 6 or 7 bites. That had 657 calories, over 50 grams of fat. On the left would be a lunch for me, 4 artichokes. Usually I have broccoli now. That day I didn't. And a Hannah yam that weighs about 1.5 pounds. That has less calories. What do you think is going to be more filling? Hopefully you say the photo on the left. So that was me eating nuts, and I was eating exactly 1 ounce a day, weighed and measured, because I thought you needed them or you would drop dead, which isn't true. I'm still here. And I could not lose 1 ounce of weight. But the minute I switched to high calorically dense food for a food much lower in caloric density and much higher in satiety, the weight literally melted off. This, if you look like Curly, you're probably eating too many nuts. I'm not saying nuts are unhealthy, but I'm saying if you're struggling with your weight, I would say omit them for a while. If you're worried about your omega-3 fatty acids, have that tablespoon of ground flax seeds or chia seeds every day on your salad or oatmeal. And by the way, I haven't eaten any nuts, seeds in like 13 years, and I just got my omega-3s tested, and they are through the roof. They're higher than people that are eating those things and even supplementing, because I don't have any omega-6 to compete, and green vegetables are very, very high in omega-3 fatty acids. All right, 4,000 calories per pound. I don't know why this is even called a food. Oil, all oils. Oil are for cars, not for people. And that's why restaurant eating is so difficult, because it's almost impossible to get an oil-free restaurant meal, because there's always residual oil in the cookware. They don't throw out the water from the pasta and not, I mean, I don't know. It's really hard unless the restaurant is like the ones maybe you work with personally. Okay. So yes, even if it's extra first pressed, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil is worse because it's actually higher in saturated fat than lard. But you can see it's, look at 500 calories of oil. I mean, you barely can even see it in the jar. I mean, what if that was your stomach? And, you know, and most recipes start with, you know, glug, 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 saute in oil. You don't have to do that. Actually, when you use oil, it coats the taste buds of your tongue so that you can't taste the food. So you actually have to then use salt, or way more salt than you would if you didn't use oil. When you stop using oil, cleanup is so much easier. Many people in the plant-based community use this slide, but just to drive the point home, these are 3 identical stomachs. We talked earlier about stretch, nutrient, and calorie reception. And if you put oil in the tank, well, it barely registers. It goes under the radar, undetected by these mechanisms, satiety. You put in 400 calories of animal products and you'll be a little bit fuller, but not much. But if you put 400 calories of food to the left of the red line in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, you can do this 3, 4, 5 times a day, depending on your, caloric needs, age, metabolism, activity level, and you'll be full and satisfied at every meal, because you'll be not only satisfying your stretch receptors, hitting those stretch receptors by a large enough volume of food, but also your nutrient receptors, because animal products and processed food don't have nutrient, and you'll be getting an appropriate calorie density. I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. John McDougall, who's been saying for 50 years, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And you've probably heard from a high school biology class or somewhere that protein has 4 calories per gram, carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, alcohol has 7 calories per gram, and fat has 9. So I put alcohol in here because, I have never seen a woman be able to drink alcohol and lose weight. There are people that drink and are not overweight, but if somebody's really struggling with their weight, liquid calories, whether they're, caramel macchiatos or alcohol, they're just not favorable for weight loss. But alcohol is very problematic because, first of all, it's a depressant. So it slows your metabolism, and it also lowers your resolve to stick to a healthy eating plan. How many people go to the bar and have a couple drinks and then say, bartender, give me some steamed kale? So it makes it a lot easier to eat unhealthy food. And of course, because it's a toxin, that's why they call getting drunk, intoxicated. All the bodily processes that you're trying to do to lose weight, like burn the fat in your butt, aren't going to happen because it has to run through the liver and detoxify. So it's really, really not your friend if you're trying to lose weight. And also if you're trying to get healthy. The World Health Organization has stated that it's linked to every cancer and that no amount of alcohol is regarded as safe anymore. So I don't recommend it, even if it's plant-based. And by the way, most alcohol is not vegan. A lot of people don't know that. Okay. Fat is more than double the caloric density of either protein or carbohydrates. And, a lot of people say, well, I don't feel satisfied if I don't eat fat. And what I learned from Dr. Terry Shintani, the author of the World Peace Diet, who brought Dr. McDougall's practice in Hawaii, is the reason you think you're more satiating eating fat is because of a high caloric density. You're responding to the calories. The biggest problem I see with people is they don't eat enough food. They're so afraid that they're going to overeat, not realizing that if you eat to the left or right, you can overeat at every single meal. But people are so afraid. So they're still having the mindset of portion control, eating thimble-sized portions of the right food. And of course, they're going to be hungry. So if you throw some peanut butter on it, you're going to feel full, but only because you're having so many more calories. If you eat enough potatoes, rice, and beans, along with your fruits and vegetables, you should feel full and satisfied at every meal. So the next slides, I'm going to go through quickly. These are not calorie comparisons. These are fat comparisons to show you that when you limit the fat or omit it entirely, especially from the oil, you can have way more food. So you can have 1 corn chip or 40 baby carrots. You can have 1 cracker with a traditional sour cream dip, or you can have an entire vegetable platter with fat-free bean dip. You can have a tablespoon of ranch dressing, or you can have 10 pounds of cherry tomatoes, and you can roast those and they'll be incredible. You can have 1 chocolate chip or 5 pounds of grapes. You can have this 12-pound bowl of fresh fruit salad and have only trace amounts of fat, or you can have a fast food meal for 25 grams of fat. Like I always say, if you want $1 million figure, don't eat off the dollar menu, or how Dr. Hans Deal would say, if you the more you eat at the Golden Arches, the sooner you'll reach the pearly gates. Fun-sized bag of M&Ms has the same amount of fat as 13 apples, and we've already discussed that most people probably couldn't even eat 6 apples. Huge bowl of vegan chili or 2 bites of a pizza. You can have 2 tablespoons of guacamole for 8 grams of fat, or you can have a huge bowl of salsa. And salsa is incredible. I'm going to be going to Mexico where there'll be a salsa bar with 8 salsas at every single meal, every type of salsa. Salsa is incredible. I remember when I worked at the True North Health Center, they didn't have a lot of the high fat foods. They came out on special occasions. Once a month, they would make a guacamole as a topping for the salad or one of the Mexican entrees. And at True North, they encourage you to eat more salads. So the dinner plates, instead of being your standard 8 or 9 inches like most people have at home, are 11 inches. When the guacamole came out, everybody was filling half their plate with guacamole. And Dr. Goldhammer said, does anybody know what a serving of guacamole is? And nobody raised their hand. And he said, 2 tablespoons, just like this slide says. And I said, per chip? And he goes, no, per day. Well, if you can have that little amount of guacamole and be satisfied, God bless you, do it. I know that I can't. You can have the world's smallest hot fudge sundae or make a huge bowl of fruit sorbet using a machine like a Ninja Creamy, Yonana's, Vitamix, Blendtec, Dessert Bullet, Champion, delicious. You know, you can have a huge salad with like a balsamic vinegar dressing, but the minute you put even a tiny amount of cheese on it, now you've had 7 grams of fat. You can have 1 donut, or you can have 70 oranges. You can have 1 M&M with peanut, or you can have 9 strawberries. And if you have to absolutely have that chocolate flavor, get a good quality reduced balsamic vinegar without sugar, like a California balsamic, comes in chocolate, and drizzle it over your strawberries. 1 truffle or 26 oranges, 1 peanut or 3 pops of air pop popcorn. Air pop popcorn is not a weight loss food. Any dried carbohydrate is not a weight loss food. If you want to lose weight, eat corn. It's 500 calories per pound, corn on the cob. But anything that's dried, like crackers, cereal, bread, pasta. Oh, pasta is a little bit different because you cook it in water, but crackers, for example, these just air pop popcorn is 1,800 calories per pound. It's also a hand to mouth food, which is really not recommended for people that are struggling with their weight or food addictions. You can have 2 regular French fries or 2 huge baked potatoes. And now you can have your French fries and eat them too by using an air fryer and turn those 2 delicious baked potatoes into all the fries you can eat. So just to recap, the foods to the left of the red line, the green foods, these are whole foods. They're found in their whole food form in nature. They contain vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, and micronutrients. They also contain fiber and water, which create bulk. And remember, bulk increases satiety. The foods to the right of the red line, the red ones, these are processed foods. They've never been found in nature. They contain few to no micronutrients, little to no fiber and water, and contribute very little to satiety. And the foods in purple, well, these are healthful foods, but they are calorically dense and, in my opinion, best included in small amounts after your weight loss is achieved. So does this work? Well, I'm just going to go through some pictures quickly. Well, that's me, for example. So it worked for me, but what good would it be if it didn't work for other people? But a lot of people follow the program, send me their photos, and you can see that it does. Even for men, even for people in their late 70s. It's Will Scott and Faith Scott from the wonderful YouTube channel, Get to the Root. They'd be great speakers for you, by the way. Works for couples. This was my first client, Shada. She lost more than I weigh. She lost 120 pounds. And I call this photo from martini to bikini, because see what happens when you ditch the alcohol. Heather had lost close to 300. So, in my opinion, for ultimate weight loss, disease prevention, and disease reversal, eat to the left of the red line. This is my book that explains it in greater detail. It's called The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss. I have a new cookbook called the 10th Anniversary Edition of Unprocessed, first book with color photos. And that's my website. I do a live show every day. If you sign up at chefaj.com once a week, we just send you the schedule so that if you have questions for the doctors, you can ask them. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you.
Oh gosh, thank you. That was so good.
Well, thank you. Did it make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I see a question from Rochelle. Where would tofu or tempeh be in caloric density? So this is interesting because it will be to the left of the red line. The only problem is edamame is what it is made from, and it is a very high fat food. Soybeans have more than 50% of their calories from fat. So if your goal is weight loss, doesn't mean you can never have tofu and tempeh, because the best way to eat the soybean would be as soybeans or edamame. It's minimally processed. See, I find that tofu and tempeh, even though I don't make it myself, you could, but because it's so high in fat, it's not something I would be eating every day or adding to every meal, but it does have an appropriate caloric density. It's just unusual that it's, for some reason, a bean that's very high in fat. If you have any more questions, I can answer. Boy, I did it pretty fast. RCC stands for refined complex carbohydrates, so the bad carbs. Plant-based milks, this is interesting because there is no one answer. And this is why so the ones that you buy in the store, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out because the calories are on the box. But the thing is it's the amount of water that's going to either make it more calorically dilute or more calorically dense. One of the things Dr. Rolls discovered is that water in and of itself doesn't make you feel full because it exits the digestive tract too quickly. So people go, well, I'm just going to eat a bunch of these snacks and they'll drink a lot of water. It doesn't work that way. But when the food is bound to the water, or like when it's in a soup or, something that you've steamed or cooked in water, like oatmeal, then it does increase satiety. Well, you can make plant milks, and I make them like with a machine I have called the Nutritional, and you can take a cup of nuts and I could put in 1 cup of water. I can put in 4 cups of water, or I can put anywhere in between. So you can control the caloric density of the milk. Now, I don't think plant milks are something you want to be just drinking like you would water. Most of the time, we recommend that you're using them maybe sometimes in creams, to make soups creamy. If you're drinking coffee and tea, a splash here and there, or maybe in your oatmeal. So if that's the case, there things the lowest calorically dense milk, and these are processed, so these are not ones you make yourself. Silk cashew milk, 25 calories a cup, or any of the almond milks like Blue Diamond, or the ones you can get at Costco or Sam's Club, 30 calories per cup. Those are the lowest calorically dense ones I've seen. They do have small amounts of salt in milk if that's a problem. You can also get brands now that are just the nut in the water. Elmhurst, Three Trees, those are going to be much more high in fat and caloric density because they're the whole nut, for example. Oat milk, again, can range. It can really, really vary. That's why one of the reasons I don't put animal products on the chart is because they can vary greatly from the very high fat meats like porks and salmon to ones that are lower fat like buffalo. So I would have to literally put every animal on the chart, and it's the same thing with plant milk. So soy milk is very clean in general. It's just soybeans and water, but again, it's often very, very high in fat because soybeans are. So it's a good question though. Is coffee or tea okay when one is trying to lose weight? So it depends, because we can't paint everyone with the same brush. And there are people that can have these items and lose weight, but for some people, and the problem isn't so much the coffee or tea, it's the caffeine. So there is a lot of research. And if you want it to look it up, I could get it to Lauren later, but it's from Dr. Linda Carney, who's a plant-based doctor who used to be the doctor for the Engine 2 programs. She did a wonderful presentation, 17 reasons caffeine can make you gain weight. So for some people, the problem really isn't so much the coffee or tea, it's what they're adding to it, which is often creamer, which is high in fat and sugar. But it's also because the caffeine has a 17-hour half-life. So even that little bit of caffeine you're having in the morning can affect your ability to sleep. And when you're not sleeping well, what happens is you don't always make the best food choices the next day. But oftentimes people that have caffeine in the morning have those 3 o'clock cravings for the sweets. It somehow seems to perpetuate sweet cravings, caffeine. So there are some people that can have it and lose weight, but others that can't. So my always recommendation is experiments. See, if you're doing everything else right and you're still not losing weight, maybe do an experiment to get off the coffee and the tea to see if you can. There is decaffeinated coffee, which of course still has about 25% caffeine. And of course, there's wonderful herbal teas. What about raw agave? Well, the problem is all sugars are 1,800 calories per pound. So whether it's honey, maple syrup, even date syrup, which is the one I recommend the most because it's a whole food, they're still very calorically dense, which is why I recommend using whole fruit as the sweetener. Dates are 1,300 calories per pound, but still better than the sugar because the fiber and the nutrients are intact. I use bananas and applesauce as a sweetener, so these are much less calorically dense. Agave, I think, is worse than having sugar because it's higher in fructose than high fructose corn syrup, and fructose is metabolized in the liver. So if I was going to have a sugar, which I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't choose agave. I would choose maple syrup over agave if I had to, but I wouldn't eat that either. So I use dates. That's all I use is whole foods like that. What do you think about butternut squash soup? I love it. I have a great recipe for it. It's called Smoky Butternut Bisque in my book Secrets. Yeah. So the coconut extract, that's something that Mary McDougall developed years ago. So coconut milk is delicious, but it's really high in fat and really high in saturated fat. So she discovered that you can take a much lower calorically dense plant milk like cashew and almond and put like 1/8 of a teaspoon, maybe 1/4 of a coconut extract and get that. But I think that's fine. And okay, so even though I said don't blend your food for weight loss, I think there's a big difference when you're blending something like beans for a hummus and vegetables for a soup than when you're blending mostly fruit for a smoothie, because a smoothie is cold, it's refreshing, you're going to drink it pretty quickly, you're not going to chew it. But most of the time soup, it's hot, you're not going to eat it quickly. And a lot of times when you're eating soup, there's still a chunky component to it, or maybe you're having it over rice. So I think it's fine. What do you eat for dinner? So tonight, even though it's Wednesday, it's Tostada Tuesday, so I'm having tostadas. And most of these recipes are on my YouTube for free. Many are in my book. So I just make a rice with like all kinds of yummy things in it. I buy the bell pepper trio from Trader Joe's with the roasted onions. I put that in there. I put in pico de gallo salsa, and that's like my rice base. My husband also has beans with his, and I get these tortillas. I am not perfect when it comes to salt. I don't ever add salt to my food. I haven't for 15 years, but I do have a few condiments, and I do get the oil-free Guerrera's tostadas. I mean, when I'm not lazy, I make my own from the Mi Rancho, but I'm eating like 2 or 3, like a couple times a week. I don't worry about it. So we put the whatever filling we want on, and then we have shredded lettuce, scallions. My husband uses olives and guacamole. I use jalapeno and salsa, and I love that. So I can do that like 2 or 3 times a week just because I love it. We make all kinds of soups for dinner. My cauliflower bisque is one of my favorite, and we will serve that over rice. What else do we have? I had this potato dish the other day. I made Mary McDougall's crockpot pizza potatoes, where I threw in some oil-free marinara and little baby potatoes and artichoke hearts, and that was really good. So dinner, we rotate that. The question is, what do I have for lunch every day? And that hasn't changed in 12 years. And I eat the same thing every day. And when I don't have it, which will be the next 8 days in Mexico, I'm going to miss it. I have a gigantic can of yam that weighs about 1.5 pounds after cooking, and broccoli. And that's just my favorite food in the whole world. So
there were some questions up. If you scroll up that we.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I've been on a plateau for months and the scale not moving. Very discouraging. I have 4 tablespoons air pop popcorn every day. Well, I'd have to see what you're eating in addition to that, like your whole diet. Dr. Lyle calls, there's some videos on my YouTube channel by Dr. Lyle where he talks about how to break a weight loss plateau, which he calls a behavioral equilibrium. So the thing is there's something in your, I don't think plateaus are the worst things, because so many people are on an upswing and gaining weight. So I think a plateau shows that what you're doing, you're able to maintain your weight. But I'd need to see your whole daily. I don't know if you have time to type it in the chat, what you're eating all day and how many vegetables you're eating. See, because when I was losing weight, I was eating like 4 pounds of vegetables a day. I mean, I can't eat that much now because I'm much thinner. I can't eat as much food as I used to. But anytime I eat, half my plate is about 1 pound of vegetables. So how many pounds of vegetables, I would say, are you eating a day? And is half of every plate you eat non-starchy vegetables? Generally, if people aren't losing weight, they're just not eating enough low calorie dense food in relation to the higher calorically dense food. So I would say it's not so much that you're eating 4 tablespoons of popcorn. My guess is that you're not eating enough vegetables. Dr. Goldhammer used to say, show me an overweight person and I'll show you someone unwilling to eat enough raw salad and steamed vegetables. So if you eat a huge raw salad with, some kind of oil-free dressing and a huge amount of steamed vegetables at every single meal, including breakfast, it's really, really hard to not lose weight. So I would say, look at that. Yes, I'm writing. It's so funny because today we just turned in the manuscript to the designer. So finally we finished. I'm writing my long-awaited compilation of dessert books. It's all fruit sweetened desserts, and it's 156 recipes, and it will come out in the summer of 2024. So I've been working on that for many, many years. And let's see. Did I see another question here? Hi from NZ. I think that's New Zealand. Whole food plant-based for about 4 years, and I have about 20 kilograms. 20 kilograms. Alexa, how many pounds is 20 kilograms? Wow. 44 pounds. Excellent. I'm sorry, I don't know the metric system. Metric system and calorie density would be calories per liter of food. I eat a good breakfast with oatmeal, sweet potato, fruit. Okay, so it is a good breakfast, but there's no vegetables in that breakfast. It's a great breakfast, but where's the vegetables? It's all starch. I mean, and starch is great. And many people can do plant straight up starch solution a la Dr. McDougall and lose weight, especially men. But where's the vegetables? So if you're going to eat oatmeal, make it greens, make it savory oatmeal with greens, start your day in a savory way. So the food you're eating is really, really healthy, but I'm not seeing any vegetables in the breakfast. Well, if you're not hungry in dinner time and you tend to snack, then you're hungry, because why would you snack if you're not hungry unless you're eating for emotional reasons? So that, it doesn't, something is not adding up. If you're not, that's fine that you're not hungry in dinner. It's better to eat most of your calories earlier in the day. But if you're snacking and you're not hungry, then why are you snacking? That's what I would ask. Because if you're hungry enough to have a snack, my philosophy is if you're not hungry enough to eat vegetables, you're not hungry. So I don't see enough vegetables in your diet for either weight loss or health. I'm lucky if I eat 1 cup of vegetables a day. Well, there's your answer, because at my slim weight, I'm eating 2 pounds a day. And when I was 60 pounds heavier, I was eating 4 pounds a day. So if you don't eat vegetables, I can't help you. You got enough.
I have a suggestion.
Oh.
So Elspeth, the Speedy Vegan, taught me this. In your oatmeal, you can shred up like half a head of cauliflower.
Yeah, rice cauliflower or zucchini. You can't taste it.
You know what? That's great. And I'm telling you, it really bulks up that oatmeal, and then you're getting your vegetables too.
Yeah, half your plate vegetables. I mean, that is the secret. Can you buy frozen vegetables and microwave them? Yes, absolutely. Believe it or not, frozen vegetables have been proven to be every bit nutritious and sometimes more as fresh, because they're picked at their peak of ripeness and flash frozen. If you're roasting them or air frying them, sometimes it can take longer because of the high water content, but that's perfectly fine to do that. Is to that. We blend up vegetables with the liquid oats and heat it up. Well, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, but a cup of vegetables, I mean, that's dismal, by the way, and not even for weight loss, but just for health. I mean, even people that aren't trying to lose weight, the government says you want to have 10 servings a day. So that's like 1, you got 9 to go, hon, Yeah. You eat vegetables, right, Lauren?
I eat a lot of vegetables.
Yeah, that's I could see.
I eat my giant salad. I call it my Jethro Bodine salad bowl every day, either for lunch or dinner. And I put everything in there, all the greens, all the different colors of everything. And it's yummy. I probably eat that every day. And then I eat like a bowl with rice and beans and greens and all kinds of vegetables.
The thing is if you don't, one of the reasons I teach a process, actually, I have a program starting July 18th with Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Lyle called the 30-Day Reboot Program, where we really delve deep into these principles, and we have a support group for that time, and they do monster 3-hour Q&As. The thing is if you wait to eat vegetables later, once you eat foods of a higher caloric density, you can't enjoy foods of a lower caloric density. So that's why parents don't like to give their kids dessert before they eat the meal, because it's much harder than to enjoy your meal. And once you've eaten a delicious sweet potato or delicious oatmeal, it's really hard to go back and eat a salad or steamed vegetables. So that's why I always recommend people eat them first, or at least eat them with the food. Anne says, vegetables is key. The sauce dressing is the key to eating vegetables. Yeah, I love California balsamic. Hummus Stand Out makes a great salad dressing. Balsamic vinegar and mustard. And then that's a delicious marinade for any kind of roasted or air fried vegetable.
Yeah, California balsamics. Ganesh asked the name of the balsamic vinegar.
A cup of herbal tea. Well, I don't. A couple of herbal tea is just a liquid with no calories, so I don't think it's a problem anytime. I don't, whether it's a snack or not. But again, like my feeling is if you have to snack, if you're hungry, eat food, eat a meal. I don't believe in snacking, because to me that's overeating or eating for emotional reasons. If you're hungry enough to eat something, eat. You can eat 5 times a day. It doesn't matter, but it's what you eat. And see, I mean, I guess if you're going to snack, raw vegetables is probably the best thing you could snack on, or even steamed vegetables. But try to eat enough at meals so that you are full and satisfied that you don't have to snack. Like one of the things I also host is something called the GI Health Summit. And one of the things that the doctors talk about is constantly eating all day. Dr. Furman talks about this too. You need to have time to rest and digest. We need at least 3 to 5 hours before our last bite of food before we lay down. We need at least 12 hours between when we stop eating till we eat the next day, maybe even more if you're doing intermittent fasting. But we have this thing called the migrating motor complex. And if you're always eating, you'd never have time for these cleaning waves to work. So I'm just not a fan of snacking. I'm a fan of eating enough at meals so that you can get to the next meal and not snack. But if you're going to snack, vegetables is great. Are you a fan of raw vegan food? I'm not an enemy of it. I just feel like, one of my best friends is Lissa Maris of Raw Food Romance. I think her food is beautiful and delicious, but for me, not that she eats that many nuts and seeds and avocado, that's a huge trigger for me. So I would rather get my calories from eating starch like sweet potatoes, and rice, which the raw foodist doesn't eat. But what I do love about many of the raw fooders is they know not to eat sugar, oil, salt. And even when they eat dried fruits and nuts, they're not eating too many of them. But for me, like Dr. McDougall says, starch is to satiety what oxygen is to breathing. And without starch, for me, I don't have any satiety. That's just me. But I don't think it's necessarily unhealthy. But the designer raw food diet can be very unhealthy. They use a lot of agave, a lot of olive oil, coconut oil, things like that. I was raw for a couple of years after I was diagnosed with pre-colon cancer. I went to the Optimum Health Institute. And I did 100% raw for 2 years, and I was just always cold. So it didn't work for me, but that doesn't mean it won't work for everyone.
Okay, maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Chef AJ has to eat her dinner.
It's not that I have to eat my dinner. That's not the thing. It's
no,
I take an improvisational comedy class, and I want Lauren to take it with me because she's hilarious, but she's too busy doing other things.
I took one with you.
And you were great. And I had so much fun in the scene with you.
I did have fun. And I learned that you have a Scooby-Doo tattoo. So everybody, now you know.
I'm Jewish. I'm not.
I'm joking.
Kidding. No, I'm kidding. It's okay to say. You're right. I do, though. I do. That was young and foolish, Now I can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, well, I can. Okay.
I mean, they wouldn't be allowed to be burying anybody now. Everybody.
Do they even check, you think?
I don't think they check. I think you're safe.
Oh, you're welcome, Colleen. Hey, Colleen, you can give me some pointers because you're going to have to hear this. Actually, now that Colleen heard this talk and she's going to have to hear it in a few days, I might even drag her up and ask her what all the answers are.
It's a great talk. I love the way that you compared the food. The visual was
the visual for me was really what pushed me over the edge. When I saw that picture in Barbara Roll's book of a 1/4 cup of raisins and 2 cups of grapes, it was like, I mean, that just blew my mind because grapes are delicious anyway. They're 200 calories per pound. And when you freeze grapes, I mean, it's like eating sorbet. And that was her book, just because all the other doctors explained it really well, but her pictures were like, really? Like is that? So I like the photos. Yeah.
But one more question. How do you go on trips and still find potatoes?
Well, when I was on the cruises, I never had potatoes. I had to eat rice the whole time. But if I'm going to a country, if I'm going anywhere in the United States, it's not a problem because I will pack a whole suitcase of Hannah yams. But if I'm going out of the country, it's, I usually have to just eat rice, or I can bring oats with me, But PIMP, potato in my purse. I never go anywhere without a potato.
That's mine. That's my thing. Potato in my purse.
Yeah. We need to create a purse that has like a special warming pocket so we can keep our potatoes. In the United States, though, we do have Wendy's. So in a pinch, Wendy's is great, but I love potatoes. I love them so much.
And they keep you warm if you are carrying around a potato in your purse.
Warm, and they really keep you satisfied. They really do. And they're much more safe. Rochelle, for 4 tablespoons of air pop popcorn, why don't you just eat a potato? Eat a potato. Oh my God, look at Andrew Spudfit Taylor. He had nothing but potatoes for a year and he lost 120 pounds. Don't be afraid to eat potatoes. They're your friend.
Delicious.
Absolutely. Well, great. I've got potatoes to bring on the plane, a long flight. My flight, Colleen's coming from the East Coast. My flight's an hour. But I still will bring a potato because you never know when the plane's going to be delayed, right?
It's true. Very true. Well, thank you so much, Chef AJ. You're a delight. And
I could say the same about you. And thank you, PBNSG. for having.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thanks for all you do. I think everybody
Aw.
feels that way.
Aw, thank you. Hey, tomorrow my show is 100-year-old doctor. So watch tomorrow at 11 because Dr. John Scharfenberg is going to teach you a thing or two, and he's almost 100.
Oh, dang. I want to be
And he's single, ladies. He's single.
okay.
All right.
That's funny. All right.
Thank you so much,
Thank
guys.
you, AJ.
Take care.
Everybody have a good night.
Yes, and a good
Take
week.
care.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks for watching and for being a part of the PBNSG community. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for even more plant-based insights, expert interviews, and delicious recipes.